The second session for this day is on solid waste management and circular economy. So on this session, I would like to welcome the first speaker, Dr. Sunil Pandey. He is the Director of Environment and Management Division at TERI. And please, sir. So Dr. Sunil Pandey, he is an adjunct faculty at the TERI School of Advanced Studies. He has more than 25 years of consultancy and research experience in the area of municipal, industrial and hospital waste management, plastic waste management, waste to energy issues, impact assessment, air, water and soil quality monitoring, site assessment, performance evaluation of ETP, and institutional strengthening and capacity building. So sir, I welcome you to give a presentation on waste management.
Thank you and good morning. Good morning all of you. And also I thank PCC to provide us opportunity to be here. So what I'll do is I'll discuss not in terms of so much on statistics, except for a slide on climate change and how situation is seem to be changing with respect to waste. Yesterday we discussed about issues relating to waste, issues relating to some mitigation options and what we can do in waste sector. This is a simple slide. Actually, morning when I met Mr. Reddy, Professor Reddy, he reminded me that we met sometimes many years back in Hong Kong in a conference, and apparently I was doing my postdoc in Hong Kong with this professor on material balance for the Hong Kong region. And these two slides I included in morning just to show how our waste situation has deteriorated over the years. Very simple prehistoric man, minimalistic needs, so minimum waste generation. And this, if you compare with not now, but reasonably modern man, more consumption and more production of waste, more generation of waste, consistent with what we call SDG goal number 12, sustainable consumption and production. This is the slide which there are two sets of projections, and if you see the first one on your right, it's something which we did many years back, before, in fact, 2014, as a submission to Ministry of Environment and Forest for the COP meetings. And the policies and programs which we had at that point of time clearly indicated that when we say projections for the future, the waste sector emissions were going to increase. And waste sector emissions, if you see, though they are only 2% for, yesterday we discussed about Pondicherry, seems to be only 2% of the global, of the greenhouse gas budget for the district. Waste sector emissions are largely comprising of solid waste, domestic sewage management, and industrial wastewater management. However, if you look at a graph on your other side, this is an indication that situation is changing. Situation is changing largely because of very intense waste management initiatives which have been taken with different effects on different cities, different states, different regions. But there's a clear indication that if we continue, if we can call this as an alternate scenario, and if we continue on this path, eventually the reduction has started happening. We'll see the greenhouse gas emission reduction which possible because of policies and programs which are little recent in times. A lot of credit actually goes to initiatives under Swachh Bharat Mission and related programs. So with this little background, what I'll do is I'll move to circularity and define in very simple terms what we define as circular economy. In terms of the graph scheme which you see, very simple. Linear economy is the economy where you take out material, mine out material, take resources, produce, use the products, and when the products become waste over the years, then you dispose them. And mostly it goes to the dump sites, which create problem, and which is the problem which we are facing now in most of the cities, where everything was very conveniently disposed on land, and thus created a problem in past. Circular economy, which we are now subscribing to globally, the movement also has been come to India, and India has also indicated that they'll also try to weave circular economy in all their policies and programs, where there is emphasis on not only production of resources, but also keeping the material which is used in production in the closer loop, using, reusing, recycling it again and again, so that minimum is required to be discarded if there is anything. Of course, I mean, there'll be situation where some amount has to be discarded over the time. No recycling can go unlimited except for some materials, metals, for example. As a principle, circular economy is not a new concept. It was coined as early in 1990. What it means is, I mean, essentially, circular economy is a restorative method where, I mean, the material which once come into production loop is not discarded, or discarded only after it becomes unusable and unrecyclable. It is designed for a circular economy. Principle is basically looking at measures such as extension of product lifetime, and there's a lot of movement here again in the certain production sectors where globally there's a pressure on manufacturers. For example, electronic industries, manufacturing cell phone devices or manufacturing television sets or manufacturing laptops. There has been long global pressure on them to design products which would not have shorter lifetime, which will have a longer lifetime. Eco-designing the system so that they have less impact, use of less hazardous material, less impact on the environment, and even when the product becomes waste, it can be easily dismantled and easily recycled. Long life goods, reconditioning, reusing activities, and this is very important because now a lot of products, especially the cell phones which you have in hand, or a lot of electronic gadgets, the manufacturers design them in such a manner that they cannot be repaired, because if something goes wrong, then you have to discard them. What happens is that you generate more and more waste because of some simple minor fault. So now, globally, the right to repair is something which is also which is becoming global movement, and industry is responding to that. They're saying that, okay, give us some time, we'll now put out products in the market where we'll have also, these products will be backed out by sufficient number of spares, so that they can be, if there's a minor fault, they need not be thrown and they can be repaired. So this is also something happening. Renting of the services in offices. Now you all also must have observed that the photocopy machines which you already purchased, now only you lease it from the manufacturer. And once you use it for 5-6 years, it goes back and the new model comes in. So renting is catching up. Waste prevention. If the material is not required to be produced, then why produce that material and why generate waste? And industrial symbiosis, where waste from one industry can be used as a byproduct in the other industry. And good classical example of this is thermal power plants, coal-based thermal power plants, where you generated fly ash, a lot of fly ash because our coal is high in fly ash, and this fly ash is going to cement plants. Around 25-30% of the cement of the OPC, which you see, is actually fly ash in the cement. So circular economy essentially is focusing on 3 objectives of sustainable development pillars: economy, accelerated growth by adopting circular economy; social, green jobs creation and employment generation; and also environment, reduce the footprint of material use on the environment and reduce GHG emission in the process. This is one example. We often say that our population is increasing, so the waste is increasing, and urbanization is happening, so the waste is increasing. But there are countries which have shown that it is possible to grow, not in the population terms. Of course, I mean, that's something which we need to address. But economically, it is possible to grow, and but it is also possible to reduce your waste and increase recycling while growing economically by maximizing resource recovery. And this is a good example from Japan, which says that, which shows that how Japan has been able to do this, adopting low carbon technologies, adopting green production processes, adopting resource recovery, maximizing resource recovery and recycling, and also ensuring that minimum goes to the landfill for disposal. If you look at circular economy potential in terms of business, there are studies which have indicated that if all the countries globally adopt circular economy in producing material, using material, then there's a potential business, it makes a potential business sense of $4.5 trillion, which is by 2030, which is why, I mean, if you only look at from the economic point of view, which is why one needs to go into circular economy, if not anything else, if you don't even consider environment. So essentially, what it would require is decoupling economic growth, as Japan has also demonstrated, decoupling economic growth from natural resource consumption, and also while driving greater competitiveness by producing more resource efficient products. There are new business models, as I said earlier, there are new business models which are being developing globally, adopting circular economy principles. And for example, one example is product transformation, where products are being designed in a manner that once they become waste, their functional items can be removed and can be used again. For example, again, since I work in waste sector, I'll again give you example of cell phones. Now there are companies which are also producing cell phones where if the phone is not usable, its camera can be removed, camera can be used again. Its memory can be removed and memory can be used again. Similarly, all the functional parts can be removed and can be used again. So there's clearly movement happening on that direction. Second is sharing platform. As I said earlier, a lot of leasing, a lot of sharing is happening. In Europe, there are many youngsters who are not purchasing car. And they're only, I mean, because many times if you have a good public transport system, you don't need a vehicle, four-wheeler on a daily basis. If you need it only once in a week to go out on a weekend, why to purchase a car and keep it in your garage? You can lease it from the market once in a week, which is much cheaper and no hassle of maintenance of a car in the longer run. So this movement is catching up. Sharing transportation, sharing lodging, neighborhood, helping neighbors. Third, resource recycling, and I'll focus my rest of the slides on how resource recycling can be increased, and so that less and less is required to be disposed in the landfills, because landfills create a problem. This slide shows why one should go for recycling. Similar amount of waste, if it is dumped on the land, it creates only 6 jobs, and that too 6 jobs which are very low paying jobs. 10,000 tons, if it goes for recycling recovery process, creates 6 times more jobs, 36 more jobs, and also the jobs are in higher pay bracket. So that's why recycling, and some facts and figures about world recycling market and how recycling industries are faring globally. So that's the reason why recycling in the country also needs to be more organized rather than unorganized efforts. 1.6 million people worldwide are active in recycling, generating around 600 million tons of resources, recyclable material, processing 600 million tons of material every year. And turnover, though I mean this is a little dated, $200 billion from the recycling operations, which is very similar to some of these countries, their GDP, Portugal, Colombia, Malaysia. And what they do, some of these recycling companies are very smart. On all the earnings, 10% of their earning is spent on R&D, creating better and better recycling processes, more efficiency in recycling, so that less and less waste is created. And if you look at the market for the recycled material, 40% of the primary material supply is met by secondary recovered material, especially in case of, say, copper, lead, where we know that primary material supply is not enough to meet your global demand. So recycled material has to basically come in and replace primary material. And that is why recycling is important. Some of these global industries which are essentially waste management companies. They started as environmental sustainability companies, but a lot of these are now global waste management companies, show that recycling at a global level is a serious business. In India, again, our own success story in terms of recycling, though in informal sector, but a huge network of recyclers at Dharavi in Mumbai, which is one of the largest organized slum, if you can say that, in Asia. And some statistics and figures on how they recycle most of the waste generated in Mumbai and greater Mumbai area and turn that into valuable products and also creating decent jobs and decent revenues from recycling. I'll again quickly run you through some recycling examples in India, because we need to know what can be done in India, what is feasible and what is happening in India. PET bottles, which were a problem a decade back, or maybe more, has suddenly found favor with the recyclers. Now, you don't find so much PET littered because they picked up and they're baled like this and then sent to shredding and recycling. These are some of the interesting products. Once you shred PET into threads, there are some interesting products which can be made out of PET waste. And though this is not kind of upcycling, but still, I mean, it's recycling PET into material which has value and which prevents PET to be littered here and there. We do composting, and here also, I'm sure wherever, I mean, if large-scale composting is tried, one of the major problem is that most of the time waste is not segregated well, organic waste, and whole waste, entire waste pile has to go for composting. And when you do composting, large amount of it is reject from the composting plants. That not only increases the cost of composting, because additional sieving step has to be introduced to remove all the uncompostable material. And uncompostable material, if you see, is largely plastic bags, rags, cloths, these things. So what to do with that? Till the waste segregation is better and improved, and composting is done only on the segregated waste at a larger scale. These can be processed, pre-processed, cleaned, and shredded in and produced into something which looks like this. This is what we call fuel pellets. In solid waste management terms, I'll call it refuse-derived fuel which is derived from waste. Now, processing your waste into this pellets, the advantage is you have densified the waste to increase the calorific value, and it is much cleaner and much safer to handle this rather than handling dirty waste, and much easier to bag, much easier to transport. And calorific value typically goes to around 2,500 to 3,500 kilocalories per kg. And this can be safely used as an alternate fuel, not only by industry, but recently, if you see, there's a lot of impetus on cement industries to use this as an alternate to coal for replacing coal. And studies have shown that Indian cement industries can very safely replace 25% of their coal by such fuel pellets. What is the advantage of using this in cement plants? High temperature in the kiln, around 1500 degrees centigrade. So that ensures that all the fuel which is coming, waste fuel which is coming into the kiln is completely destroyed. The residence time in the kiln is much higher than incinerators. In incinerators, it's 2 to 3 seconds. Here, it is more than 5 seconds. So that ensures that no dioxin and furan generation happens in the cement kiln, which is a problem if you look at normal incinerator. Many times, it generates dioxins and furans. The acidic gases, if they are generated in terms of oxides of sulfur or hydrogen chloride, since cement process use a lot of lime in the kiln atmosphere, it is neutralized in the cement kiln. And biggest advantage is that there's no residue coming out of the kiln. All the waste material which is fed as alternate fuel in the cement plant becomes part of the cement and goes out as a cement clinker and can be grinded as a cement matrix. Sorry. Plastic waste, here also in Trishapalli, it's happening, Trishapalli and Tamil Nadu, it's happening at a large scale. Which plastics which cannot be recycled, the dirty plastics, we say, difficult to recycle, and single-use plastic as per government definition, can be shredded, can be mixed with bitumen, and can be used in road construction. And experience has shown that the roads which are constructed by bitumen mixed with plastic waste last much longer. This road in Jamshedpur was a test road, which when we went 3 years back to the city, they showed us this road, and that time they had constructed this around 5 years back, and that this road was still serving them well. So it's jumping. Another waste which is problematic, and I'm sure the city also is using some of this as a beverage containers, is Tetra Pak. Now, why Tetra Pak is problematic? Though, I mean, for packing, it is very safe material, very hygienic material, but because of its constituents, 70% around paper and rest in polythene and thin layer of aluminum, makes it problematic in recycling. When it's generated as a waste, the Tetra Pak is sent to paper recycling. Sometimes it's also sent to paper recycling units which recycle mixed papers. There it is pulped along with other papers. But what happens in pulping, the paper gets separated. Aluminium and polyethylene cannot get separated, and they come out as a mixed material which is called polyal, polythene and aluminium mixed. So this is one of the problem in Tetra Pak recycling. So what Tetra Pak is trying to do is trying to recycle them into such corrugated sheets which show excellent water repellency, excellent stability, and also excellent heat resistance. Only thing is, the challenge here is to develop a market for this recycled material, and that is where a policy needs to be there in place, which can develop market for such alternate material. I'll end here with a message that whatever waste we are generating, if we segregate them properly, if you recover the resources from there properly, organic waste differently, either composting or biogas, dry waste all to recycling, and also something which can be recycled to as an alternate fuel, either for cement plants or for road making. We can create an aspirational situation where we can do away with the landfills. On the right side, if you see, it's a burning landfill, which, if you must be reading in newspaper, in last 15 days or so, it's happening. It happened thrice in one of the landfills in Delhi, and happened once in another landfill in Delhi. The landfill has caught fire in the April and started burning. So we can avoid that situation. We can also achieve something which we call aspirational goal of creating landfill-free cities. The benefits of that: reduction in uncontrolled methane emission, which is a climate gas, reduction in landfill fires and accidents at the landfill sites, minimizing waste disposal to the landfill, creating the situation where we can do away with the requirement of landfills, resource recovery, maximizing resource recovery from the waste, and we discussed why resource recovery is important, and creation of green jobs. So, in fact, as was discussed yesterday, in one of the action plans for waste management, and also Professor Reddy also has been actively working on this. A lot of action is happening in the country for remediation, redevelopment of the landfills which were created as dump sites earlier, and how these landfills can be mined out. Different materials can be used, combustible materials for converting them into RDF, soil-like material for soil conditioners, and if there is any green waste left, then in a compost and landfill, these landfills are now being actually mined and redeveloped by Government of India, and it is proposed that integrated waste management plan would be set up in such created space, which would help in managing the waste in a scientific manner in future. So I'd like to end here and thank you, and like to leave you with the message on reduce, reuse, and recycling. Thank you very much.